The fee is 10 times your annual income, and a private car is already waiting downstairs from your studio. The voice on the other end of the phone was like a block of perennial ice, crashing coldly into my buzzing, overtired brain. It was midnight. Outside, Seattle's endless downpour raged, and I, a bankrupt art therapist, had just received an emergency house call invitation from the legendary palace in the sky, Olympus Tower, 10 times my annual salary, to treat the son of tech mogul Kalen Sterling. It sounded like something out of an urban legend, half deadly temptation, half unknown danger. But looking at the red, overdue, rent notice next to my easel, I had no choice. I'll be right down. I hung up and forced the smile uglier than the sob at the paint and fatigue-splattered person in the mirror. My intuition was screaming, telling me that opening this door would send my life spiraling out of control. But I grabbed my art kit anyway and rushed into the storm that seemed poised to swallow everything. The car glided silently through the city's arteries, finally stopping before a skyscraper that pierced the clouds. After an iris scan, the elevator ascended with a deafening speed. When the doors to the penthouse apartment opened, I felt as if I had been snatched from the mortal world. Beyond the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, lightning danced madly over the city. Yet inside was a fortress of absolute silence, constructed from cold technology and expensive art. In the center of the living room stood the man who only existed on the covers of financial magazines, Kalen Sterling. He was more intimidating in person, his eyes as deep and unfathomable as the Puget Sound in winter. Dr. Sharma. His voice was low and magnetic. My son, Leo, is 7. He hasn't spoken a word since the car accident a year ago. Curled up on the sofa in the corner, the little boy named Leo looked as beautiful and vacant as a doll. Kalen's request was simple. I don't need you to make him talk. I just need you to bring him back. I sat on the floor, opened my digital sketchpad, and without a word, began to paint with colors, blue for sadness, gray for fear, and finally, a dab of sun-like warmth in the center. A few minutes later, the boy's small hand reached out. He viciously drew intersecting black lines over my painting, like a shattered spiderweb, trapping the yellow hue. Then, using red, he dotted a glaring crimson spot in the center of the web. My heart sank. It was a shattered car windshield and blood. I looked up and met Kalen Sterling's shocked and complex gaze. You're staying, he said, his tone a command. From now on, you're on call for Leo, 24/7. Mr. Sterling. I stood up, looking him directly in the eye. I am not a commodity to be bought and sold. I have other patients. A mocking smile touched the corner of his lips. Dr. Sharma, in this city, no one says no to me. Then, perhaps it's time you got used to it. I turned to leave, even though the flicker of disappointment in the child's eyes behind me stung like a needle. The next day, my so-called integrity was crushed by reality. My studio's rent was paid for the next 10 years by an anonymous benefactor, and top global firms made outrageous offers to acquire my practice. I stormed back to Olympus Tower, furious, only to be told an even more shocking fact. My new buyer was none other than his arch-nemesis, Dmitry Volkov, the man who had caused the car crash that killed his wife, and I had become a new pawn in their struggle. From the moment you walked into this building, you were no longer an outsider. Kalen's voice was frigid, as if on cue. A call came from the fire department. My apartment building had, coincidentally, suffered a gas leak. Just like that, I was placed under house arrest in this magnificent gilded cage. It wasn't until a rainy afternoon, as Leo looked at one of my drawings, that he uttered my name in a voice so faint it was barely audible. Anya. In that moment, tears of joy streamed down my face. Kalen rushed out of his study and knelt before us. This man, who controlled the technological lifeline of half the city, showed his vulnerability to me for the first time. The three of us, in that instant, felt like a real family. However, this warmth was soon shattered by a woman named Isabella Vance. She was Kaylin's late wife's best friend, elegant and beautiful. Yet, she always managed to subtly remind me of my status as an outsider. One evening, she unintentionally led me to see an encrypted file in Kaylin's study. Anja Sharma, Risk Assessment and Control Protocol. I opened the file and felt a chill crawl down my spine. It contained everything about me, from my blood type to my childhood traumas, from my financial situation to my personal relationships. Every detail was precisely analyzed, quantified, and attached to a comprehensive control plan. What I had thought were coincidences of fate were all his code calculations. Don't misunderstand, my dear. Isabella appeared behind me at the perfect moment, her voice dripping with sympathy. That's just how Kaylin is. He's used to controlling everything, especially the things he cares about. My body went cold. I stormed out of the study and threw the tablet down in front of him. What is this? Am I just a project to you? A risk asset to be assessed and controlled? They are necessary precautions. Kaylin's face was ashen. Necessary. I laughed, furious. In your eyes, am I just another object in your code base? When facing a man like Volkov, any uncontrollable emotion can become a fatal weakness. He finally raised his voice, his eyes filled with suppressed anger and pain. I can't lose anyone else. If you were me, faced with this suffocating calculation and control in the name of love, would you choose to believe in his hidden reasons, or would you flee at all costs? Tell me your choice in the comments. I chose to flee. That night, I twisted bedsheets into a rope and daringly climbed down from the balcony. But the moment my feet touched the ground, two shadowy figures clamped their hands over my mouth. Just as I thought it was all over, several powerful flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Kaylin's bodyguards descended like avenging angels, instantly subduing the kidnappers. Kaylin rushed over. Seeing my disheveled state, the fury in his eyes could have set the night sky ablaze. But he said nothing. He simply took off his coat, wrapped it tightly around my shivering body, and swept me up into his arms. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely back in the penthouse, his hand gripping mine tightly. I shouldn't have tried to protect you my way. I was just so scared. In that moment, all my anger and feelings of betrayal vanished. I looked at this man who stood at the pinnacle of the world, yet lived in fear. And for the first time, I understood the loneliness beneath his icy exterior. This near-death experience brought our trust to an unprecedented level. However, the peaceful days didn't last long before a greater storm arrived. The core code for Sky Eye, a key AI technology for urban security developed by Sterling Corporation, was stolen. The next day, the code appeared on the dark web, and all the seamlessly forged evidence pointed to one source, my Soul Canvas Art Center. Overnight, I went from an inspirational therapist to a corporate spy who had stolen trade secrets and endangered the city's security. The flashes of media cameras and the swarms of reporters threatened to consume my studio. Sterling Corporation's stock plummeted, and the board put immense pressure on Kaylin to immediately cut ties with me and press charges. I didn't do it. I looked at Kaylin. My eyes filled with helplessness. I know were the only two words he said, but they were more powerful than any explanation. In front of all the board members, he took my hand. Until this is cleared up, Anja remains my fiancée. Sterling Corporation will use all its resources to find the person behind this. It was an enormous gamble. He was betting his entire business empire on my innocence. In the following days, we were under immense pressure. I became the city's villain, and he became the fool blinded by love. Isabella worriedly urged Kaylin to give up on me every day, and even Leo was ostracized by other children at school. Dad, Leo said quietly to Kaylin one night, hugging me, I believe Anja, just like she believed I could talk again. The child's words gave us infinite strength. Kaylin worked through the night, tracing digital breadcrumbs, while I began to recall every suspicious person who had entered or left the art center during that period. Eventually, we found a common thread, All the clues pointed, however faintly, to Isabella. It can't be, Kalen murmured. His eyes filled with pain. To lure the snake out of its hole, he deliberately announced to the board that he would hold a press conference in 3 days to reveal conclusive evidence in the Sky Eye theft and to formally file a lawsuit against me. The people closest to you are often the ones who can hurt you the most. What do you think Kalen should do to expose Isabella's true colors without alerting her? Share your strategies in the comments. This was precisely Kalen's and my plan. On the night of the press conference, the art center was decorated like a fantasy castle for a grand fake engagement charity gala. Under the spotlights, Kalen raised his glass and announced loudly, "Anja has not only healed my son, she has healed me. She is my light." In the ensuing chaos, Isabella grabbed my arm anxiously. "Anja, it's dangerous here. Come with me." She led me towards a side door. A waiter carrying a tray accidentally bumped into me. I smelled a strange, sweet scent and instantly lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in an abandoned port warehouse. Dmitry Volkov sat across from me, and standing beside him was none other than Isabella. "Surprised, aren't you?" Isabella caressed my face, her smile venomous. "Kalen's wife, Emily, she was the brilliant one, the one who should have stood by his side. But Kalen's arrogance and his enemies got her killed. He destroyed her, and now he wants to find a replacement like you? I will not allow it." Volkov laughed. "Your fiancé is currently on a wild goose chase at a fake location outside the city. By the time he realizes he's been duped, it will be too late." My heart sank. But with my bound fingers, I secretly pressed the inconspicuous gem at the center of my brooch. Suddenly, all the lights in the warehouse went out. In the darkness, Kalen's voice rang out like an oracle. "Dmitri, have you forgotten? In Seattle, I am the god of the digital world. And Isabella, did you really think your little schemes could escape my notice?" A massive gate slowly rose, and Kalen stood silhouetted against the light like a descending king. He walked to my side, cut my ropes, and pulled me into a tight embrace. He didn't even glance at Volkov. His eyes fixed on Isabella, the disappointment and pain in his gaze more profound than when facing his enemy. "Why?" He asked only that one word. Isabella was crazed. "Because you don't deserve happiness. You killed Emily. The game is over." Kalen closed his eyes, unable to look at her any longer. Police and federal agents swarmed in from all directions. But just as she was being led away, Isabella turned back, gave me a strange smile, and said, enunciating each word, "Anja, do you really think you've won? Go ask your hero about Project Nightingale, and about the secrets his flawless deceased wife was hiding." Project Nightingale. The words pierced the fragile trust we had just rebuilt like a poisoned dart. Back at Olympus Tower, the atmosphere was suffocating. I looked at Kalen's weary, evasive eyes and asked softly, "What is Project Nightingale?" He was silent for a long time before speaking, his voice hoarse. "It was a project my wife, Emily, led before she died. An AI that could deeply analyze and influence human emotions. Her original intent was for post-traumatic stress disorder therapy, but its potential was far greater than that." He opened an encrypted folder, and its contents made my blood run cold. Nightingale could not only analyze emotions, but could also, through precise neuroacoustic waves, subtly guide or even shape a person's emotional responses. What Volkov truly wanted wasn't Sky Eye, but this Nightingale, a tool capable of manipulating human hearts. And Emily, the woman idolized by everyone, including Kalen himself, had left behind a Pandora's box of such danger. I sealed it away after the accident. Kalen's voice was filled with pain. I told myself I was protecting Emily's ideals, but perhaps I was just running away, running from the fact that she wasn't perfect, that she was even dangerous. This secret lay like a new chasm between us. What he had hidden from me wasn't just a project, but the idealized love for his late wife that he couldn't let go of in the deepest corners of his heart. A few days later, a man claiming to be from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency found me. He told me that Nightingale was far more dangerous than I could imagine, and that the consequences would be catastrophic if it fell into the wrong hands. Mr. Sterling's judgment is clouded by personal feelings. Dr. Sharma, the man named Copeland, said gravely, "We need your help to convince him, or to assist us in obtaining control of Nightingale without his knowledge and destroying it completely. This is for national security and to protect you and Leo from becoming the next targets." He handed me an encrypted key card. "This is your chance. Choose real security or hold on to a ticking time bomb." I held the code card, sleepless all night. Copeland's words echoed in my ears like a curse. Kalen's concealment, his almost obstinate protection of his late wife, made me waver like never before. The final test has come. On one side is national security and a protection that would end this once and for all. On the other is the faltering trust in the man I love. If you were me, what choice would you make? Become a double agent for justice? Or choose to believe the man full of secrets? Tell me in the comments. The next day, I didn't go to meet Copeland. I walked into Kalen's study and placed the keycard on his desk. "They found me," I said calmly. "They want me to help you make a choice." Kalen looked at the card, the shock in his eyes slowly replaced by an indescribably complex emotion. He looked up, his gaze deep, as if seeing me for the first time. "My choice," I said, meeting his gaze, my voice steady, "is to choose with you. Kalen, Emily's legacy shouldn't be a prison that confines you, nor should it be a weapon that threatens the world. We need to face it, and then, together, we will end it with our own hands." My words were like a key, unlocking the final shackles on his heart. The layer of ice in his eyes completely melted, replaced by a surging, unreserved torrent of emotion. He walked over and pulled me into a fierce embrace. The embrace of a man who had finally found his harbor after countless storms. "Thank you." His voice was choked with emotion. "Thank you for not giving up on me." We contacted Copeland, not to cooperate, but to lay our cards on the table. Kalen agreed to hand over Nightingale, but on the condition that he personally destroy the core code under the supervision of a third-party international security organization to ensure it could never be restored or misused. That day, in a heavily guarded underground server center, Kalen entered the destruction command in front of everyone. As the code representing Nightingale dissolved into gibberish on the screen, I saw him close his eyes in profound relief. He had finally made peace with his past. After the storm had completely passed, a true sense of tranquility finally settled over Olympus Tower. One evening, Kalen took me to the newly restored art center. There, in a hallway adorned with children's paintings, he knelt on one knee. He held out the brooch that had saved my life. It twisted open from the middle to reveal a brilliant diamond ring. "Anja Sharma." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a sincerity and unguarded love I had never seen before. "I once thought my world was nothing but darkness and vengeance, until you burst in with your colors, and time again, saved me from the prison I built for myself. This plan was never fake from the beginning. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you and your colors." Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. Years later, on a sunny afternoon, I sat on the lawn of the art center, watching my husband, Kalen, fly kites with our 2 children. Leo had grown into a cheerful, talkative young boy, and he was patiently teaching a little girl, a few years younger than him, how to control the kite string. Her name was Lily, the daughter we adopted from a refugee family affected by Volkov's crimes after the kidnapping incident. Kalen walked over and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "I was just thinking," I said, leaning into his warm embrace, "that the center of a storm can be the most peaceful place in the world." He smiled and kissed the top of my head. "Yes, we had been in the eye of the storm, but we found each other and became each other's calm, unshakable center." Thank you for listening. May you always find your own peaceful harbor in the storms of life and be treated with tenderness by the world.